Hi friends, it is November and you know what that means. We have to pick a new TBR for a brand new month, which is so exciting. Today, I'm not just going to be showing you the book that I'm planning on reading in the next month because I actually haven't picked them yet. So the plan for picking the TBR today is something that I've seen several creators do, and that is having my pet choose my TBR. By now, I'm sure all of you have seen Cheddar roaming around on screen. He loves to be right in the way when I'm filming, so today he will be choosing my TBR for me. Isn't that right, buddy? So here's how this is going to work. I am planning on laying out 2 to 3 books depending on the genre, and I'm going to put treats on top of both of them, and whichever one Cheddar goes to first will be the book that I will be reading, and we will do that for 5 books. I am planning on making a TBR of 6 books in November, a little bit shorter than what I normally read because November, December tend to be very busy months for me as well as everyone else in the entire world. I'm going to get the things set up and then Cheddar will be choosing for us. See you in a sec. But before we pick the TBR for November, I have gotten several books in the past couple weeks. That's not for now. That's for a minute from now. Hang on. I'm so excited. I already showed you guys these in an earlier vlog, but since we are doing a book haul, I thought I would mention them again. I went to a brand new opening of Barnes & Noble near me, and I got 2 books. I got The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and I also got The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This one is a mystery thriller, and this one is a historical fiction. And I am so excited to read both. This one has a very fierce love from a lot of people, and this one I haven't actually heard that much about. That was the first book haul. The next couple books I bought online to finish series that I own part of the books for, but not all of them for. The first one being Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I have already read this book. I read it earlier this year. This book is so good. Before this book, I didn't necessarily read romance that often. I wasn't necessarily interested in it because most romances that I encountered had very two-dimensional characters, and as you guys know, I'm a character-driven reader, so having two-dimensional characters just didn't sell it. But Abby Jimenez writes such good characters. They're three-dimensional, they have real-life problems, so if you have not read Yours Truly, or anything by Abby Jimenez really, but especially her last 3 books, Part of Your World, Yours Truly, and Just for the Summer, I would highly, highly, highly recommend them. She is so good, and this is a great book. And then the other 2 I bought finish off the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. Now, I'm not to these books yet. I'm still a couple books away from them, but I bought Dark Age and Lightbringer. The final 2 books in the Red Rising Saga. There's one more coming out next year sometime, I think early next year, but I now have all the ones that are out so far. Last week, I stopped at my local thrift store and browsed the book section, and I found a couple books there. The first one was A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. This is part 1, Steel and Snow. I have not read any of the Game of Thrones books. I don't own any other Game of Thrones book. I wasn't even planning on reading anything that was Game of Thrones, but here we are. This book was only $1, so I guess eventually I'm going to have to read the series now because I own book 3, part 1. Apparently. Maybe one day we'll get to this, but I'm not necessarily planning on doing it anytime soon. So the next book that I bought was also because it was only $1, and that is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kilmer. And I have no reason to buy this except for the fact that it's $1 and I've heard of it before. So I bought it. The last book that I got was one that I also have never heard of, but it's an author that I've heard of, and that is Magic Hour by Kristen Hanna. Now, this is obviously the second book that I bought by Kristen Hanna recently. I still have not read any of her books. Again, it was $1, and I can't pass up a deal on a book. And so many people love Kristen Hanna, I figured it was probably worth a shot. I have 2 Kristen Hanna books now, though they're not the same size, which is a little disappointing. The last books I got when I went up to Charlotte last week, and that is When in Rome by Sarah Adams. I have not read any Sarah Adams romances yet, but I've heard that they're really cute, so I figured I would pick one up and see if I like them. I've heard that this one is everyone's favorite, so I picked up this one first. I have no idea if it's in the middle of a series or if it's just all by itself. I also got Just Last Night by Bari McFarlane. This is technically marketed as a romance, but I've heard that it leans more on the women's fiction side and that it's very, very good. I have no idea what to expect of it though. It's kind of one of those books where enough people have raved about it that I have kind of lowered my expectations a little bit, but I don't necessarily have super high expectations for it. And then lastly, I bought Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is a cozy fantasy, and I don't typically pick up cozy fantasies. I tend to love high stakes fantasies a little bit more. So this will be an interesting experiment in if I like cozy fantasy or just cozy anything in general, or if I am just in it for the high stakes. So we'll see, but the cover is really cute. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive editions. So if I like it, I'll buy Map of the Other Lens, which is the second book in the series with the same Barnes & Noble exclusive edition so that I have a matching set, which will be really fun. That is everything that I have bought from the bookstore in the past couple weeks. I kind of told myself that I shouldn't be buying any more books for the rest of the year because I have so many books that I haven't read yet that I bought earlier this year when I kind of went a little crazy. But as you can see, that didn't go very well, and I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 new books from the past couple weeks. Anyway, now let us move on and see what Cheddar chooses for my November TBR. So how this is going to work is Cheddar is going to stay there. No, he's not. Stay. I'm going to put 2 books on the ground, and Cheddar is going to choose between them by picking whichever treat is on top first. So the first 2 that we're going to be doing is The Ministry of Time, and then also Remarkably Bright Creatures. So I'm going to just lay them on the floor like so, and then take little, no, back up. I had to move them because he was being so nosy. Leave it alone. So as you can see, we have 1 treat on each, and whichever one he picks first is the one I will be reading. Okay. Oh, The Ministry of Time. Excellent choice, Cheddar. I was hoping you would pick that one, if I'm being honest. Good job, buddy. You can have this one too. Okay. Got my books all wet. So that is the first one. Time to do the next one. The next 2 books Cheddar is going to be choosing between is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston and Better Than Movies by Lynn Painter. I'm kind of hoping that he chooses Better Than the Movies just because I haven't read anything by Lynn Painter yet. So I think that it would be really fun to try a new author, but we'll see which one he picks. Him's being such a good boy, being so patient. Okay. Oh, The 7-Year Slip. Do you have a bias for that side, buddy? Well, it looks like we are reading The 7-Year Slip. You have good taste in books, little boy. I did this one a little bit differently just to see if he would choose another side. So on this side we have The Hunting Wives by May Cobb, and on the side we have Ballet for Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. And the little treats are on top. Let us see which one he chooses. Okay. Oh, it did change it. Okay, Dial A for Aunties. I've been wanting to read this one for a while. I'm excited that we're finally getting to it. Add it to our little stack. In all honesty, he is doing such a good job. He's being such a sweet little boy, and I am excited about our little stack so far. We are about halfway through him choosing my TBR. Okay, the next 2 are going to be a little bit harder, okay? You have to think carefully between The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna and Dance of Thieves by Mary Pearson. Okay. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Okay, looks like we are not going to be reading that many fantasies this November, which is a little sad. I was really hoping that he would pick Dance of Thieves on that one because I really wanted a fantasy book, but it's okay. At least I'm getting a book that I just read very quickly. I feel like that's always an accomplishment when it doesn't sit on the shelf for like a couple months. Now Cheddar is going to be picking my nonfiction book. I have 3 options in this category. The Alan Turing, The Enigma. That one I'm kind of hoping he doesn't choose just because it's really, really thick. And The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna is also very, very thick. So I'm not sure I'm going to have time for such a chunky nonfiction book this upcoming month. So hopefully he doesn't choose it, but you never know. I also have The Shadow King, which is a story about what happened to King Tut's mummy after it was discovered, and then Dolly Parton's memoir as well. So these are the 3 he will be choosing with next. Stay, please. Stay. Thank you. Okay. The Shadow King. Interesting. All right. Here's the nonfiction read for the month. I may end up picking one more if I go through this one pretty quickly. It's pretty short. And then lastly, I am giving him a choice of only one book because this book I am reading this November, whether he chooses it or not, and that is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. Okay. I kind of did that one as just a little, might as well give him an extra treat. I decided after I finished Fourth Wing that I would be reading Iron Flame in November, whether or not Cheddar chose it for my TBR. And I am just so excited to get back into this world and this series. I have been absolutely dying to get back into it since I finished Fourth Wing. It is at the top of the priority for the TBR. And again, it's a really chunky one, so I'm glad that he didn't choose Alan Turning the Enigma. That would have been 3 really thick books in the month of November, and I don't have big book fear, but it does take longer to get through them. But that is all the books that I have for Cheddar to choose between. We now have all the books that we are going to be reading in the month of November. Let's review what he picked. We got some books. The first book that Cheddar picked was The Ministry of Time by Colleen Bradley. I am so excited to read this one. Honestly, this book is one of the ones that I've been meaning to get to for quite a long time. It is a book that is such up my alley. This is a literary fiction book. Just the premise of this book sounds so interesting to me. Let me read the synopsis. In the near future, a civil servant is offered the salary of her dreams to work at a top secret project. A recently established government ministry is gathering expats from across history to establish whether time travel is feasible for the human body, but also for the fabric of space-time. She is tasked with working as a bridge, living with and assisting and monitoring an expat known as 1847, or Commander Graham Gore. As far as history is concerned, Commander Gore died on Sir John Franklin's doomed 1945 expedition to the Arctic, so he's a little disoriented to be living with an unmarried woman who regularly shows her calves, surrounded by outlandish concepts such as washing machines, Spotify, and the collapse of the British Empire. But with an appetite for discovery, a 7-a-day cigarette habit, and the support of a charming, chaotic cast of fellow expats, he soon adjusts. Over the next year, what begins as an excruciating, uncomfortable housemate dynamic evolves into something much deeper. By the time the true shape of the ministry's project comes to light, the bridge has fallen haphazardly and fervently in love, with consequences she could never have imagined. Forced to confront the choices that brought them together, the bridge must finally reckon with what she does next and how it can change the future. An exquisitely original and feverishly fun fusion of genres and ideas, The Ministry of Time asks, what does it mean to defy history when history is living in your house? Colleen Bradley's answer is a blazing, unforgettable testament to what we owe each other in a changing world. I'm so excited to read this book. It sounds so interesting. Just the concept of someone coming from the 1800s and living in the modern world and having to adjust to it, that concept in itself is just so intriguing to me. And I would read a book with that concept no matter what genre it was. So that is the first book that we are going to be reading. The second book that Cheddar picked was The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. We read our first Ashley Poston book, The Dead Romantics, earlier this month, and it was okay. It wasn't great, and so I kind of have the same expectations going into this book, even though I know this book is much more dearly loved. The next book that Cheddar picked was Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto, and I think the cover of this one is just so fun. This is a mystery. I think it's a cozy young adult mystery. From what I understand, this girl accidentally ends up killing her blind date and has absolutely no idea what to do. And so she calls in her aunties for reinforcements and to try to help her figure out what to do with the body or what to do next. And it's just supposed to be funny and light and cute. And so I'm excited to read it. For the nonfiction book, we have The Shadow King. This is a story about what happened to King Tutankhamun's mummy after it was discovered. And it's not a super long book, but I'm super intrigued as to what it says because I know relatively little about what happens to archaeological finds once they are dug up, besides the fact that they may be like put into a museum or something. So anyway, this one sounds super interesting. This is the only nonfiction book I have on my TBR, but I might pick up another one depending on how fast this one is going. Then he picked The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I am so excited to start this book. From what I understand, it is based in World War II Paris, and it follows women through war. And I think that's a very common theme in Kristen Hanna's books, where she explores what brave women did in times where it's genuinely taught the big things that men did. And so I am excited to read this. I have heard that this is heartbreaking and so good. I love historical fiction. I haven't picked up a historical fiction in a while, so it will be really good to get back into it. And it will be my first Kristen Hanna book, which is exciting as well. And lastly, the book that I am most excited to read, and that is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is a thick book. Let's see how many pages it is. This book is 623 pages of pure dragon fun, and I am so here for it. I know that this is not everyone's favorite, and after all the excitement of Fourth Wing, that this one didn't necessarily live up to the hype in the way that people were hoping that it was, but I am so excited for it nevertheless. You can't have a good series without having books that help you set up for what the next conflict will be, and so I'm expecting that that is what Iron Flame is going to be. But more than anything, honestly, I am just so excited to see the dragons again and to see the relationship between Xaden and Violet blossom, and to see where we left off, because the last book ended on such a cliffhanger. I didn't even know the book was ending. I thought we had like 2 more chapters left. I was reading on my Kindle, so I had no awareness of like where I was in the book. I was not paying attention to the little percentage at the bottom, and it just ended very abruptly. And I was absolutely in shock that that was the last chapter. I could not believe it. So I'm so excited to start this book because it was a cliffhanger, and I've been waiting 2 months to figure out what happened after that cliffhanger. And so we will be reading this one very, very soon. And that is the last one on our TBR. So let's see what we got. These are all the books that I'm going to be reading in November. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and that you enjoyed watching Cheddar pick my November TBR. If you like this video, then please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what books you are planning to read in November. I will see you guys next time, and have a great day.